Hello there and welcome to my guide for painting the Rhino for Marvel's Zombies. As you can see, the very first thing I've done is spray them black with some matte black spray from Colourforge. Then I'm going to give them a coat with some Mechanicus Standard Grey. And this will be followed by a wash with some Nuln Oil. Once that wash is dried, I'm then going to start dry brushing. For the first dry brush, I'm going to use some Mechanicus Standard Grey just to brighten things up a tiny little bit. From there, I'm going to use some Dawnstone. This is a little bit of a lighter dry brush, so take a little bit more care. This will be followed by a 50-50 mix of Dawnstone and Grey Sear for the next dry brush. Again, we're not doing such a heavy dry brush, we're still being very careful, and we're now kind of aiming more at the areas where the light will catch. Then for the final dry brush, we're going to use Grey Sear, and this is mostly, once again, going to be everywhere where the light will catch, and this is going to be the lightest dry brush we've done. For the zombie version of Rhino, I'm going to use some Pink Horror in all the areas where the flesh has been exposed. And all of this will get washed with some Carroburg Crimson. On the zombie version's face, you can still see a little bit of skin as it's mostly skull, but for that I'm going to use some Rakarth Flesh. For the hero version of the Rhino, I'm going to use some Bugman's Glow for his skin. Both these areas will then be washed with some Reichland Flesh Shade. Once that wash is dried, I'm then going to go on and use some Flayed One Flesh for the zombie version skin. And this will be followed by some Pallid Witch Flesh. For the hero version, I'm going to use some Cadian Flesh Tone for the first highlight. Followed by a 50-50 mix of Cadian Flesh Tone and Kislev Flesh for the second. And then the final is just Kislev Flesh just by itself. I'm then going to use a 50-50 mix of Pink Horror and Wraithbone to highlight all of the muscle and viscera we can see. Next, I'm going to use some Morghast Bone to paint any of the bone areas. That was also going to include the horns and the sort of bits on the hoof. These areas will then get washed with a little bit of thinned down Agrax Earthshade. I thinned it down using some Lamia Medium. Once that had dried, I then used a 50-50 mix of Morghast Bone and Wraithbone for the first highlight. Followed by Wraithbone just by itself for the second. I then used some matte white to paint in hero version's eyes. And then I used some Dawnstone to paint in both of the bases. And Corn Red to paint the fire hydrant that the hero Rhino has sticking out of his base. I then dry brush the Dawnstone with some Grey Sear. And I dry brush the fire hydrant with some Wazdaka Red. I then tidied up the rims of the bases with some Abaddon Black. And used some watered down Agrax Earthshade all over both the bases. And finally, this is a step you can skip if you choose to, but I added some blood for the Blood God to add a little bit of gore on the zombie version. Once that's dried, that's both rhinos finished. A pair of lovely, really easy and really simple models to paint. Rhino is one of my favourite characters to paint because it is so simple. It's a lot of fun, and it's a very good way to learn how to dry brush. And because of that simplicity and dry brushing, he only took about 2.5 hours in total to paint, and most of that is honestly waiting for stuff to dry. I really do love the zombie models. I think they do a fantastic job at sort of making sort of more disgusting versions of it, and I really like the exposed skull on this Rhino. I think it really does help him stand out. Thank you so much for watching. If you followed this guide, I really do hope you found it useful, and if you want to see more, give the channel a subscribe. I've got others as well for Marvel Zombies, and yeah, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye for now.